Hello, Ashley. Hello. All right, can everybody please be seated? Consistency down, John. All right, I'm going to call the special meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. We'll begin with a brief moment of silent prayer, pledge of allegiance. Everybody, I want you to have in your prayers. We got a new grandpa on board, Bob Hartwig, just his daughter about 15 minutes ago, he said, had his number 6. So, okay, we'll begin with a prayer. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call. We're all present. Supervisor Schleif is on Zoom. Everybody wave to him. Hi, Jeff. How you doing? So the affidavit of posting, this is a meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. Prior to this meeting, public notice was given by posting a copy of the agenda in the office of county clerk and emailing the agenda to the West Bend Daily News, which is the official newspaper. In addition, the agenda was emailed to CNI Newspaper, Express News, the Kewaskum Statesman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, WIBD, WMBZ Radio, and WTKM Radio. The above action is in conformity with the state of Wisconsin's open meeting law. Before you get rolling, I just want to make a quick announcement. Make sure everyone speaks directly into the microphone. You tell the difference. You do this. Yeah. Good. So it's not as big a problem at our board meeting, but especially during committee meetings, wait till the red is on. We've had a lot of incidences with our Zoom meetings that when people view them online or later, that they can't hear what's going on. So make sure that the light is on and you speak directly into the microphone so it can be heard. Everybody, we can hear you, but we want to make sure the citizens can hear us too. Okay? So consideration upon request, reading of resolutions and ordinances, 2021 Ordinance 1, amendment changing the standing committee oversight for Fair Park, AIS, Agriculture and Industry Society, from the Administrative Committee to the Land Use and Planning Committee, amend sections 15 through 29, 15, 30, and 179-10. To the motion, Supervisor Mahalik, Supervisor Bossert. Any discussion in this? We do have some cleanup language. I'm going to let Attorney Stern address that.
If there is no objection to the following, what I would propose that we do is strike lines 30 through 35 on page 2 of 3. The reason for that is because the county's representative on the AIS committee will no longer be a county supervisor. It's anticipated it will be the person on behalf of the county who will be working with AIS, and the promoter will be talking about in a moment or two, and so on. And so, and we, Josh and I had just spoken about this, the county executive, Mr. Shulman and I, that either way, we don't really need that to be in county law. So there's really no need to amend that to name somebody else. So unless there's a strong objection to just doing that by way of a friendly suggestion at this point in time, I would just ask that the board by consensus agree to just strike lines 30 through 35, and then we proceed from there.
Any issue with that from anyone? Supervisor Conry.
Yes, thank you. I really don't have an issue with moving those over like that. There's only one suggestion that I'd like to pass along, and that is to have a subcommittee to be overseeing this, or to be telling the major committee of what's going on and to help with it out there. And under that subcommittee, I would love to see farmers, people that are working with FFA, people in that type of industry on that subcommittee, whether it's 3/4 our supervisors and 1/4 people from the outside, that's fine. But I would strongly suggest that because a lot of us here don't have the expertise and don't have the knowledge of what's really all going on at that fair park. And I think that would really help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question in regards to striking out the lines 30 through 35. Who will be the appointed members on the AIS board then?
We'll be handling that through the contract with AIS, but the general understanding is that would be Jamie at this time for position, Jamie Ludovic.
So there's going to be an amendment to the contract with the AIS committee or with the AIS board?
Yes, in fact, those contract discussions, we've really in principle agreed on all the terms and conditions. My expectation is tomorrow their counsel and I will be getting together to put the finishing touches on that agreement, and that's contemplated in there.
So assuming the resolution 9 is approved tonight, you would then execute the amendment to their contract.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Schleif.
Yes, I agree with Supervisor Gonring. We should have some sort of oversight. Over time, that committee that runs Fair Park has pretty much run amok. And so to prevent that from happening again, I think we should have something in place. I trust Jamie, but we should think about something else as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gunner.
Well, I'm going to repeat what I said once before, and I think I'm okay with whichever committee oversees it, but I think there's almost no distinction between having Parks and Planning, or whatever the proper title is, oversee AIS, a committee of volunteers, as opposed to that same committee overseeing a committee of the county board. I think it would streamline decisions. There would be no need for repetition in HR, finance, admin, and maintenance. I would like to again say that I think instead of having a contract with AIS, that the county take it over and run the Fair Park and Conference Center.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Sorcy.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just reaffirming, so we had talked before about AIS being on board with what we're doing. Have you talked to them about that? I mean, are they on board with what we're doing?
Yeah, it's, they are in agreement that this is a win-win situation for both the county, for them and for the citizens of Washington County. So they are on board and in principle, everything's set in stone almost and should be finalized tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Conrath.
Yeah, just to reiterate some of the concerns here, with not having, I'm a little concerned of not having a supervisor or more connection with the AIS, like people have said already, how that committee's kind of run amok and have put us in the situation we are in today. We need a little bit more structure and accountability and defining out what AIS really should be and who should be represented on there. Like the true people, the farmers, the FFA that was spoken of. Yeah, so this concerns me a little bit, the strikeout.
Yeah, the structure that we've agreed upon is not unlike what we've done with EDWC, where we have citizen members on board rather than supervisors, and they're charged to look over our interest, work between with the county executive. I don't know if it'd be in consultation with the chair or, but there is ultimate oversight with the board too. So.
Are we going to end up structuring then, or I recommend we end up structuring routine reports or, some type of connection back to us all here?
Well, they'll continue to report to land and planning, correct? So land and planning will still have their general oversight that the admin has right now.
Okay.
So we have right now, Kara Guzzi and Chris Dice are our liaisons. And they were appointed beginning of the year, about January, February, something like that, further on. Okay. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Okay. Yeah, maybe just recommend a little bit more formal structure and reporting because of the situation that we've landed ourselves in.
Okay. No.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm going to call on Supervisor Mary first, and then I'll get you next.
Thank you,
Supervisor
Mr. Chairman. Just a clarification, we're striking out lines 30 through 35, and we've only mentioned Ms. Ludovic, and it says, supervisor from the Land Use and Planning Committee, and one other supervisor. That was not mentioned in the discussion about striking out those lines. Is there not going to be a second supervisor involved?
Apparently, yeah. There won't be any supervisors that are on the committee. So they're on that board. So it would be just one representative from the county, and that would be Jamie. Do you want to speak to that, County Executive Shulman?
Sure. So the agreement in part, this has actually already been discussed at length with AIS and their agreement. It's going to model EDWC, and the way that EDWC is modeled is to try and have a position, which of course this position is Jamie at the moment, but it could be any unelected person, which is literally how EDWC is structured. Point being, that position is supposed to represent the county's interests. It's supposed to report back to the Land Use and Planning Committee in this particular case. In the case of EDWC, they report back to Executive Committee. But ultimately, the politics of the situation is removed, which inarguably has been there for 20 years. Every time we've come into an issue with AIS, it's been a political issue. And so the hope is that we try the model that we know works extraordinarily well with EDWC. And she's talking already. That's amazing. Congratulations. Yeah, I understand. So the hope is that we attempt to use a model that we have that already works. If a year or so from now it's not working, we'll certainly come back to you and make those changes. But I think there's more than enough accountability in the system with Jamie reporting back to Land Use and Planning Committee. As Supervisor Murray can attest to, they talk very frequently. So I'm confident this is going to work, and if it doesn't, we make a tweak to it.
Okay, any questions for Josh while he's up? Okay, Supervisor Bossert.
Okay, I respect the concerns of Supervisor Conrath. At the same time, having worked on this board now for 5 years and gotten very familiar with Jamie Ludovic, I'm confident that with her directly involved with AIS, her involvement will be much greater than a part-time county board supervisor would be able to invest. And I think we're going to see a lot of positive outcomes with that arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm gonna let Supervisor Dice go first, and then you go, Jeff, okay? Supervisor Dice.
With all due respect to Supervisor Gonring, I understand what you're saying, but as a member of this, of the AIS board for the last few months, both Kara and I don't see it as a problem. I don't believe that having another subcommittee to me would be duplicitous for the fact that land use is really the oversight committee for the Fair Park. And I agree, Jamie can do a wonderful job taking that off our shoulders. I think if there's anything of significance that comes up at those meetings, she will be more than terrific at bringing that back to land use and having the issue brought before that subcommittee or that committee. From my experience, the majority of their meetings it's pretty standard stuff that they review every month, their finances, what projects are coming. There's nothing overly, I mean, you know they're functioning, and I think that's what's important. And if an issue does arise, she's more than capable of bringing that back to the powers that be. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Schleif.
Supervisor Dice, thank you very much for those comments. And my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Supervisor Conrath.
Yeah, we're all speaking to this individual, Jamie. Could you explain Jamie's scope, and for the people who are listening to?
Sure. Supervisor, County Executive Shulman, please.
Thank you. Jamie Ludovic is our community development director here at the county, and she basically everything that's under the scope of land use and planning is under her scope administratively. So all of the functions in the planning and parks department, planning, parks, land use, land conservation, all of which report to land use and planning, as well as now, if you are to approve this ordinance amendment, Fair Park as well would all report to the Land Use and Planning Committee. And she has administrative oversight for all of that. And she's not just a department head, she's a cabinet member. So she's one of 4 people that report directly to the county executive office. So that particular position, the idea would be it would be a cabinet member, in this case, Jamie, but with the case of EDWC, for example, that's Dave Barber, who's also a cabinet member, director of administration. They have a direct line to the county executive's office. They have a direct line, in this case, to the chairman of the Land Use and Planning Committee. It's designed to be as efficient as possible administratively and to get back to the committee and to the elected county executive office with no interruption.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Gunner.
So then my question is, how does the golf course, how is that managed? I mean, do they report to Jamie, or is there there's a separate committee?
Yeah.
Or is Jamie it?
Jamie's it. She's our number one rock star. I didn't mention the golf course only because I kind of lumped it in with the park system, but the golf course would be an addition, and the golf course also reports to her. Craig also reports to her. So it's the same exact procedure.
So if there's an issue with the golf course, or even like something in the parks,
Yep.
she would bring that to the attention of the chairman, and then it would be brought up for discussion.
Precisely.
See, I think that would work really great with the fair park.
Yes, I just don't like more county employees.
See no further discussion. We'll vote on this electronically. About this, do you want to fill in any other blanks?
I think so for the benefit of everybody watching tonight.
Go ahead.
Certainly for the folks who decided to take time to show up. I won't go into the years, but more importantly, with what we're asking you to contemplate today, handles that property out there, because that's really what you're doing. As much as it is tackling arts, entertainment, and culture on that property, it's really the county taking ownership again of what we created back in the mid-1990s under a board at that time. So first and foremost, this is about the county taking ownership and responsibility for one of our best assets as a county organization, physical assets, that is. This resolution that we're asking you to contemplate today authorizes us to enter new partnerships. The one with agriculture, but it is integral into how the whole mechanism is going to work altogether. So that from what we've had them do for many, many years now out at the Fair Park grounds. Another nonprofit organization in Washington County, hopefully, that will help do that formally by taking back over all of the responsibilities for things. Whoever controls parking in that property really controls the property. And we've made that clear to AIS and the private partner that we really want to have that as our community development director becomes important. Now, the Agricultural and Industrial Society and hopefully this new nonprofit and private sector entity. The vision is, I think, what was envisioned way back in 1994 when the county board at that time adopted resolution number 1794 and 95 for a new county fairgrounds planning. They put together a committee at that time to move from Slinger out to its current location. And I think as part of that process, they asked that group to contemplate utilizing a facility that goes beyond simply the county fair, but also has multi-use that could be used year round. And really, I think everybody in this room, and quite honestly, I think just about everybody in the Agricultural and Industrial Society agrees that it's been less utilized than we would have liked. And I think that vision was cast even further by West Bend Mutual Insurance when they made that generous donation of over $600,000 to put a beautiful stage in place to make that amphitheater really a gem, not just for our county, but Southeast Wisconsin and all of the Midwest, quite frankly. So the idea is ultimately this private entity, which I'm confident and excited that we can announce today, is Eagle Entertainment Incorporated. They are the owners of the Rave and Eagles Club down in Milwaukee. They have a long history of entertaining and in an entertainment industry over a half a century. They have experience across the nation in multiple facilities and venues. Most people know them because they own the Eagles Club downtown Milwaukee near Marquette. But they've also been involved with things like Alpine Valley and State Fair Park, running their entertainment in years past. What we're asking from you today is to adopt the concept in resolution form. Once you've given that blessing, we'll be able to enter agreement with the Eagles Club Incorporated, Eagles Entertainment Incorporated, and begin hopefully a journey that over the course of the next decade transforms the use of that park. Most of you have probably driven by the park at some point in time over the past many years, and unless you hit it during the county fair or maybe one or two other weekends, there just isn't use of that amphitheater like I think we all had hoped 5 years ago when West Bend Mutual gave that generous donation. Now, what we're working towards in contemplating this new agreement is that it'll be used dozens of times over the course of the summer, and hopefully more than dozens of times over the course of every summer from now into the foreseeable future. We've had long negotiations with the owner of Eagles Entertainment Incorporated over the course of the last 8 months. We've had simultaneous negotiations with the Agricultural and Industrial Society over that time as well. And I think it's fair to say that we have worked both sides as hard as we can to get an agreement that I think is amicable. If you've had an opportunity to read the Washington County Insider this morning, the AIS board has fully endorsed, according to their president, Phil Dahlberg, has fully endorsed the new arrangement between the county and AIS. We've had conversations, Brad has had conversations as recently as this afternoon with the owner of Eagles Entertainment Incorporated, and they're ecstatic to get moving. And so we hope if you will entertain and approve this, that we'll have signed agreements by the end of the week. And today is Wednesday, so that gives us 48 hours. So we're happy to take any questions if you have them. It was certainly a high level 60,000 foot view thumbnail sketch. I'm happy to answer those. Brad can certainly answer any detailed questions if you're interested, but I thank you for your consideration.
Supervisor Sorcy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we going to get a kind of like a draft on what the contract looks like and what we got coming and what's going to all happen? I mean, you able to see that?
We have finalized the contract with Eagles Entertainment, and we spent, as Josh indicated, months and months and months on this arrangement. And as a matter of fact, I engaged the services I mentioned before of attorney Peter J. Strand, who is one of the top entertainment lawyers in the country out of Chicago, to assist in our negotiations. I spoke with him today. He sent me an email in which he reviewed the final version of the agreement, in which he felt that this was a fantastic agreement for the county. Our interests are well protected. It's advantageous to the county. All the terms and conditions therein, and gave it his thumbs up. And he does this for a living. I was very proud and pleased to work with him and to get that endorsement from him. I must have sent umpty-9 drafts down to Chicago back and forth, and worked with the Eagles Entertainment and their lawyers very closely to get this done. I'm happy to, if you'd like to come see the contract, make that available to anybody who would like to see it. Ultimately, what it talks about in general is that there'll be a concert season at the Fair Park that'll run from May through November. During that period of time, Eagles Entertainment will host various concerts, festivals of maybe a couple of days apiece, family events they're talking about, community events, commercial events, things like that. And that'll run through the summer. There may be opportunities at times for them to hold off-season events within the buildings. And that depends, of course, on whether those things can be coordinated with AIS's schedule, which we are very mindful of as well. And they are also going to be investing in the Fair Park in a number of fabulous improvements. We're talking permanent dressing rooms, concession stands, restrooms, um, reconfiguring the seating out there over the course of time. And so they're making a tremendous investment in Washington County and in our Fair Park. And we were very excited to negotiate those terms. We also went so far as to make sure there are provisions in the contract where we get dozens of tickets provided to other charitable organizations in the county. So individuals who normally maybe wouldn't be able to afford to attend a concert, the likes of which we're going to bring to town, can get in and see these shows at no cost. That was very important to us because we want to make sure that above all else, people remember this is a public facility with a public purpose. And we want to make sure the public has access to these shows and is able to come in and enjoy the Fair Park. Mr. Balistreri and his group Eagles Entertainment will be providing entertainment for the county fair, but the idea is that just as the fair is now, what you pay to get into the fair is what you will pay to see those shows. So there'll be no extra cost to our citizens. So we're mindful of that. And so we really wanted to create an agreement that was advantageous for the public as much as it was for anybody else, because again, we think this is going to become an entertainment destination in the region. We think it's going to be a crown jewel of the state and perhaps a location in the Midwest people are going to be talking about. So this is an exciting opportunity for all of us here in the county. And I think you're going to see a lot of economic growth as a result of this and a lot of excitement as well, based on what we're putting together.
Brad, is it renewable, or on both sides, or how's it?
It's a 10-year agreement upfront with 2 potential renewal periods by mutual agreement. One of the things that we have been very concerned about through the course of these negotiations is that we want to make sure that while we maximize the use of the amphitheater, that we're also able to still hold all of those events that we care about out there at the Fair Park that AIS has so beautifully put on through the years, things like Deer Fest, things like the 4-H events, agriculture and industry type gatherings and so forth. And we want to keep those things going. So what we built into the contract are provisions that Eagles Entertainment will provide us with a list of dates at the beginning of the year that they want to use, so we can coordinate those things with AIS and whoever else we're going to be working with potentially out there to put on events. And Eagles Entertainment has indicated they have no intention of getting in the way or canceling other events that we have scheduled out there. In the event, though, however, events may need to be rescheduled or canceled due to emergencies such as, God forbid, pandemic. We have clauses built in that the county would not be responsible to pay the costs of those shows. I did speak with our county's insurers, indicating that if there were events that were canceled, our insurance policies generally cover those kinds of things in the event there's again, a natural disaster, an act of war, terrorism, something like that might cancel an event. We've been very mindful of making sure that everybody who uses the Fair Park is still going to have the opportunity to do that. And while we intend to use the amphitheater more often, the idea is not that this agreement is going to kick everybody else out of there. And Mr. Balistreri is well aware of that. That's our intention. And in fact, in the agreement itself, he goes so far as to mention that his intention is to put on events that enhance the economy of Washington County and meaningfully work with the other organizations we have out there.
Wait a minute. Carol, you're first. Supervisor Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't wait till we get a new seating arrangement so you don't have to all watch the back of my head as I speak. Those of you who know me understand the passion I have for Fair Park and all the amenities that are part of that property. It is a fabulous facility that has been underappreciated and underutilized for years. Starting tonight, we can begin changing that. In talking with Chairman Creefall earlier today, we both expressed our excitement about finally being able to share with all the great news we have to tell tonight. I want to thank all the county leadership for the role you have played in negotiating this agreement regarding the Silver Lining Amphitheater. This includes, of course, County Executive Showman, County Attorney Brad Stern, Chairman Creefall, and all the others involved. Special recognition also has to go to the leadership at West Bend Mutual Insurance for the vision they had many years ago about building this fabulous stage and the potential it could have for bringing thousands of visitors to Washington County and Fair Park. I understand they are extremely happy with the prospects of seeing Silver Lining Amphitheater appearing in videos and photos of acts that will be performing on their stage in the future. I've never been to a show or concert there, but I have walked the stage, and it is a phenomenal structure. Under this new leadership and management structure, we can finally begin seeing it used to its full potential. The economic impact of bringing top entertainment acts to the stage should be tremendous for the entire county in terms of revenue coming into and spread across the entire area. I truly hope all of you vote favorably for the resolution. This can be the beginning of an entire rebirth of all of Fair Park and its contributions to Washington County, something about which we should all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Milliken,
Yes.
bring your mic down so we can hear you.
What would the hours of operation be? Are their concerts done at midnight, or are they going to go till 2 o'clock in the morning, or is that open ended, or?
The contract, that's a great question, Supervisor Milliken. Thank you for that. I did neglect to mention, the contract does contemplate that. And what the contract calls for is all concerts will be over and the property will be empty by midnight on nights of shows. And so the intention is that this is not going to run all night long. It's not going to disturb everybody for hours and hours on end. It'll be a reasonable period of time that a concert is on, and then it's over and the grounds are empty by midnight.
Thank you.
Supervisor Gonerich.
Thank you. Some of the questions I had here and that have been answered, but again, you have indicated in the past meeting where West Bend Mutual was not happy with how it was being utilized and everything else. How much verbiage has been going back and forth with with West Bend Mutual? Are they on board with this? Especially, I guess it kind of hurts me a little bit that I had also heard about name change, that you guys wanted to do something with name change out there too, no longer, Washington County, place in that. They wanted something else. Last part of mine here and that really is there going to be anything in that contract on decibel levels at lot lines or a half mile out or whatever? I've been at some of these concerts, not his in particular, except for about 30 years ago, Alpine Valley, with my kids. And I had all the windows closed in my van and I couldn't stand it in there. So I don't think anybody within a mile or two of that place is going to appreciate the decibel levels that used to be down there. So I guess, there's three things there that I really have. So if you could hit on them.
Sure. So first, with regard to West Bend Mutual, I'm not certain that they were ever displeased. I think they have always wished to see more utilization, but I wouldn't go so far as to say they were upset. They do have a member on the Agricultural and Industrial Society board who was always advocating for using it more, and they used it more. I think 2 years ago now, they brought some national acts out there for their own employees. So that's that issue. Second, I guess we won't name it the Joe Gonerich Memorial Park. That's fine. We'll find something else.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll wait until later. But with regard to the Silver Lining Amphitheater, that has actually been contemplated in the agreement specifically, that name will stay, that those naming rights will be respected. The same thing with the pavilion. The question really is the grounds as a whole. Whether or not that changes is yet to be determined. If it is, it's certainly something that's going to be the expense of Eagle Entertainment. And then finally, the sound. there's certainly going to be more of what people who live in that area experience during the county fair. That is definitely one of the trade-offs. What I would say in that regard is, as you all contemplate it, is I live about 3/4 of a mile south of Freeze Lake. And every Sunday night in the summertime, I listen to cars on Slinger Speedway for hours on end. And everybody in Washington County in that area generally does. So yes, that is going to be something that people are going to have to adjust to the change. And it is a downside, but I think it's something we knew when we got a $600,000+ investment in that facility event. That's what we were inviting, quite honestly. So there is no decibel section of the agreement. There is no sound regulation at lot lines. I mean, we're Washington County. We don't do that kind of thing, but it is certainly something we acknowledge.
And in speaking with Eagles Entertainment and Mr. Balistreri, the owner in particular, he's very concerned about being a good neighbor and a good partner here in Washington County. And he's very also concerned about his brand and his reputation, 50+ years in the business. And in part, that's why we want the concerts to end at a reasonable hour. But I think if we have problems out there and there are issues, it's certainly something we'll take to him and he'll address. And so I have every confidence to believe that he wants to run a successful operation out there too. But Supervisor Gonring, you're right. A rock concert's going to be loud, and but I don't think the intention is that it be any louder, any more intrusive than what we have going on out there at the times of the fair. But we'll be monitoring things.
And this is probably a good point to interject that we have had conversations with Freightert across the highway. I've also had conversations with the town chairman and town of Polk. I have my staff working on conversations with the single family residences immediately surrounding, and we'll be talking to the business owner on the southwest corner of PV and P in short order. So I'm certain there will be some concerns, but some upsides as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gonring took care of quite a few of the questions I was going to ask, but how many year contract is this Eagles Entertainment Company? How many year contract are you going to give them?
It's 10 years initially, and then 2 optional 5-year renewal periods.
Okay. Did you think of anything about the traffic backup on 41 on the highway? How are you going to handle that?
Well, yes is the short answer. There's a number of aspects to handling that. One is a law enforcement aspect. The sheriff has been part of the discussions about this from the last probably 3 or 4 months, has been aware of it. He's been in consultation with other law enforcement folks who have experience in this regard. So that's one area. He's aware of it. The owner of Eagles Entertainment has indicated very early on that he needs to have a very close working relationship with the sheriff and the other chief law enforcement officers in the area. So he's fully aware of that as well. And then with regard to how the road itself can handle it, we fully anticipate that there will be a point in time where the DOT is going to have to be at a table with us. If it goes as well as we would like it to go, that whole interchange is likely to have to change. It was part of the conversation with Freightert as to why I wanted to meet with them ahead of this meeting, the CEO of Freightert West Bend. And he indicated that he didn't have any initial concerns, but it was certainly something that we needed to keep in communication on, making sure emergency vehicles can get through efficiently and effectively. So there definitely is the potential. What I've said to Brad many times about this particular contract, it's one of those types of deals that you try to dot every I and cross every T as you work through and hire high powered attorneys to make sure you're not missing something. But the real concern isn't whether we're going to succeed or fail. I think it's pretty clear with the background of Eagles Entertainment that we're going to succeed. The concern is how much success is there, and then how do you manage that? And this is one of those examples where I think 5 years down the road, pardon the pun, we could be looking at some significant changes that need to be made at the intersection of PV and 45.
Sorry. Let me get you here.
Another thing I was going to ask you is, how many tickets, is there going to be limited to some, how many people can be there? Or what's the deal on that?
The venue is got a capacity. It'll be essentially booking shows in the ballpark of the 10,000 individual range. However, the grounds actually can hold up to 25,000 people. The idea is that most shows will be billed in that 6 to 7 to 8,000 person range, 10,000 on the high end. But there may be the occasional, A-list star that comes through or festival that comes through. That we may be able to expand that out to 25,000 people. But as Josh alluded to earlier, part of the issue comes down to number of parking spaces and how we handle all of that. But the short answer, again, Supervisor Hartwig, is and that's the current capacity, about 10,000 people, as much as 25,000. And I think we have had 1 or 2 shows through the years that did exceed that 10,000. When Poison was in town, for example, years ago, which was a hugely successful show, we hit that number, I think.
One last question. Why did they come to Washington County and ask to be involved here? How come they didn't go up to where Country USA was? How come they didn't go up there? And
This is the greatest county in America.
there we go. That's a good answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give you the 20 bucks.
Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 questions or points. First one, the fairgrounds is located in the town of Polk, correct? Is the county subject to the town of Polk zoning ordinances out there? Or are we exempt as county property?
It's county property and we can zone it as we choose. We have been with talking with the town of Polk, though, and it's been something that they've actually, and I don't want to speak, Josh had the conversations, but my understanding is they've endorsed this. They think it's great. And it's going to be a great opportunity for the town. We expect there'll be some opportunities for the town also to take some revenue from here to improve some of the infrastructure, roads around the park and so forth. They've been fully briefed on it, and my understanding is they're standing behind this as well.
Yeah, what I'm getting at with that is the contract might not address sound levels and stuff, but I'm sure the town ordinances do have that, or at least for normal people, normal residences, not the county so much. So I would hope that not only does the Eagles, whatever their name is, get along well with the county, but they do maintain that relationship with the town level too. Second point is I just want to, if this is as successful as we are hoping this can be, and that it's being presented, that we do maintain our existing commitments to all of the rentals that are already booked out at that place, because most of them might be okay with it, but I'm still have some concerns about the existing weddings booked out there, stuff like that. They were there first. I wouldn't want my wedding in the middle of a rock show. That's my one concern. I don't, the first year of this operation is where I have my biggest concern. There's going to be friction, and it's more than a learning curve of everyone getting along out there. So, thank you.
Supervisor Gundram.
I want to say that in a concept, this is great. I think it's excellent that we're getting to use that facility. But you're asking us to approve a contract we haven't seen, we don't know much about. We've just heard about 2 weeks ago. And so you're thinking, as I look at this, you're contemplating that everything is going to go swimmingly well. So you've put together a 10-year initial contract, which normally you have a shorter term and then you extend it longer. And I'm thinking that 10 years is something I'm personally not very comfortable with. And I understand that as a entertainment, it's hard to hire entertainment, but it's usually got a 1 year in it. So, to put it out for a full 10 years, that's a pretty long time. The other thing we had talked about in other meetings was, if there's any damages to our property, they would make good on that. Do we have an escrow account for that? We're not charging them are we charging them rent for using our facility? If we're not, I absolutely think we ought to have an escrow account because this is a new relationship. And I think we need to protect the county. Those are my two main issues. And the other thing is, I live a block from Slinger Super Speedway. You guys have
What?
no idea. So yeah, the noise is a problem, but I've lived there for almost 30 years. I haven't moved yet. But I will tell you this, we have no plans ever to do anything on a Sunday. Not using our yard.
Thank
But
you.
anyway, I am concerned about those two other issues
yeah.
that it seems like a really long contract, and I'm going to vote no if it's a 10-year contract, because I just can't feel like I'm doing my responsibility by saying that everything's going to go swimmingly well.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute,
Okay.
because we're not asking you to approve the contract. Thank you. We're asking you to approve the concept. That's what the resolution is. The executive's office approves the contract. I'm happy to take that responsibility. It's conceptually what we're asking you to do. And we felt it's important to come to this body to adopt the concept before we go gallivanting into this huge new relationship, and to have it publicly on the record. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, the 10-year arrangement, we debated that long and hard. We talked to our outside counsel about that specifically. The reason it's a 10-year agreement, really, at the end of the day, is the types of investments that Eagles Entertainment is talking about putting into the facility won't be measured in the tens of thousands. They'll be measured in the hundreds of thousands and millions. And so the exchange for that is, we're not going to put millions of dollars of investment in your property for a 5-year agreement. I mean, that's a reasonable ask. So then finally, the dollars and cents. This isn't a landlord-tenant relationship, which is the disaster that we got ourselves into with Agriculture and Industrial Society for the last 20 years. This is an agreement with an entertainment industry and management agreements with AIS, and hopefully someday a nonprofit organization to help manage the entertainment. Because of that, our revenue isn't rent per se. Our revenue will ultimately come from how they perform. So if they have more shows, we get more money. If they have less shows, we have less money. All of those things are tied to their investments. If they don't have the number of shows they hope, they're not going to put the investment into the property. So everything is a little bit cyclical and tied to one another. But at the end of the day, I'll end where I started. We're not asking you to approve all of that. We're asking you to approve the concept so that we can approve all of that. And again, I'll take responsibility for that contract. That's Brad's job. But ultimately, we want and need, I think, the county board's approval to be able to go down this path.
And in terms of, I'm sorry, Supervisor Gundrum, I wanted to talk about your question regarding damages. So the way the contract is structured is that for the events that he holds out there, he has to have insurance policies that cover those kinds of things. So if there's damage done, if there's issues out there, if there's cancellation, things of that nature, those things will be handled through insurance. And he has to have insurance certificates for all of those shows. And that's basically how that's covered.
So I guess I'm looking at, you're saying that there's a commitment of an investment by him. Is that in the contract? And if I understand, if it doesn't go as well, no harm, no foul. But is part of the contract and part of the deal that it's a 10-year contract, that there is an investment, a dollar amount that you're requiring?
We are already in the process, assuming everything gets approved as we expect it should this evening, to have meetings scheduled on the books already. I think something like May 6th, May 5th, to sit down and start putting together a plan in terms of what the improvements out there are going to look like. The contract itself doesn't speak to exact dollar amounts. It speaks to improvements that'll be made and their commitment to fund those things. Again, such as permanent concessions, permanent restrooms, backstage areas, things of that nature. So they're fully expecting to work with us to put a plan together and then to fund those things.
But we're approving a contract, and I know that you're going to take full responsibility, but I think I have a responsibility to the people who elected me to know, to have, to not just say, well, Josh is doing all this, it's okay. So I feel that way, like you're not usurping my responsibility, but I feel like I need to take responsibility for that. So we're blindly approving a contract that we don't know what's really in it. And,
Right.
and
You
saying that
haven't
we're
approved a
depending on
contract
you.
Since you've been on the county board, actually.
Pardon?
You haven't approved a single contract since you've been on the county board.
This is
trust
a
me,
big thing. This is a big thing.
And with all due respect, we sign much bigger contracts than the one you're even talking about tonight. So I completely appreciate what you're saying. I sat on a joint review board 2 weeks ago where I had exactly the same types of concerns and I got the same type of answers. So I totally appreciate it. If you feel like you can't vote for it, I respect that completely. And no, I'm still not asking you to approve the contract. I'm asking you to approve the concept. We couldn't possibly negotiate a contract with 27 people.
I understand that. I don't disagree with that.
I think we're agreeing. It's just.
Yeah, I think we
different
are
sides of the issue.
agreeing. I'm particularly concerned about a 10-year contract.
Understood.
That it's not on the short term, and then moving to a longer term without knowing what all of the issues are going to be that the county may have problems with.
Understood.
I'm done.
I know.
Supervisor Sorcy.
I can't believe it. Called on me. Thank you. I'm sorry. No.
You're welcome.
Most of you know, I've been in the entertainment business for a long time. Farther than I can remember. It's getting to the good neighbor. Do you mind? Getting to the good neighbor situation. Everybody wants to be a good neighbor, but again, all depends on the acts that you are bringing in. Who is paying for the extra deputies that we might need if we bring in somebody really huge?
So that's contemplated. And again, it leads to another point I'd like to make too regarding the acts that appear at the venue. We did build provisions into the contract that the county has the right to turn certain acts away. Okay. I don't want to name specific acts. I guess it's a matter of taste, but if there's something out there that is particularly offensive because they said or did or posted something that shocks the conscience and we wouldn't want that out at the fair park, we can turn that opportunity for that performance down. The contract is structured such that any security, any employees that need to work that evening, whether they be AIS employees or county employees or whomever, will for that evening be put on the Eagles Entertainment payroll, so Eagles will be paying for those expenses.
Mr. County Executive, this is for you. If the good neighbor situation gets, I mean, we're making money, okay? And I'm not against that, but we're making money. And the good neighbor thing, I mean, you get one complaint out of 500, I understand it, but you get a lot of complaints about, well, it's too long, we're pushing them out, and now the sheriff gets into a confrontation with some people in that. How do we handle that situation if it gets out of control? I mean, I know you're not a miracle worker. I'm just saying, if that situation would arise.
Also in the contract is a provision that Eagles Entertainment will be meeting with the Sheriff's Department to put together safety plans for Fair Park and its operation during the times that concerts are on and how they'll be handling exactly those kinds of situations. One of the things that we wanted to make sure was that the sheriff was at the table the whole time with us on this agreement and is participating and making sure that it's a safe environment out there. So that is one of the contract requirements, that the sheriff be involved in putting together the safety plan with Eagles and that he approve of it.
Brad, do they gauge other situations around the country on how many deputies they needed for Harlan Oaks or something like that? Is that how they do it, or is it a judgment call?
Well, Mr. Ballesteri and his group used to operate the Alpine Valley, and they worked very closely with the Walworth County Sheriff's Department. So he has a lot of experience working with the sheriff's departments and putting on events and understanding how many people he needs within the facility, patrolling or outside of it. And he is able to put those things together based on his experience. And again, bringing the sheriff into the discussion as well. We'll have all of that figured out.
All right, thank you.
I think it's going to be a lot like when we had the US Open at Erin Hills. US Open, the USGA paid for all of the security. So that's the type of contract we have, and it's very typical from my experience in law enforcement, how that works when another entity comes in and utilizes your police force or your sheriff's department. They're responsible for that. They're responsible for carrying the workers' compensation, and there's an injury on duty. They're responsible for any damages. This is about an 8-month negotiation to put the county in the best position possible going forward, even to the point of having another attorney that's intimately involved with these types of situations. So I give credit to County Executive Showman and Brad for leaving no stone unturned here. I mean, they were looking. I mean, they what ifed it to death. What if this? What if that? What if this? Back and forth, back and forth. I can't even imagine how many hours you put into this, Brad. But I've seen it. It covers us. It covers us. So,
Mr. Chairman.
oh, sorry.
The,
You're on.
the other thing I think it's probably important to mention is that with this agreement, and there's a reason your resolution is spelled out the way it is, the county isn't spending money to do anything. We're not spending our money on the improvements. We're not spending our money on the acts. We're not spending our money on the promoter. We're not spending our money on AIS. The only thing we're spending our money on is moving snow and cutting grass. Everything else is the responsibility of AIS and Eagles Entertainment and any nonprofit that we work with in the future. So yes, we're binding ourselves, but the cost of that binding is on those individuals. And it's not as if something were to go wrong, it defaults back to the county. Nothing comes back to the county. So it's from that perspective, it's all upside. There are the downsides that some of you have already laid out that we're going to have to address and deal with. But I think for the most part, this is a tight contract.
In addressing that, the length of it briefly without opening that can of worms again, I guess what I want to say about that in part when we negotiated this was understanding that right now the entertainment industry is still not recovered from the pandemic. It may not be that we get this agreement really up and running for a good maybe 2 to 3 seasons. We're hoping to get maybe a couple of shows out there yet this year if we're lucky, if bands are on tour. Hopefully next year, depending on how things go, we'll have a more complete concert lineup. But it may be some time before this thing really gets off the ground, and that was part of the consideration. The other part of the consideration is that, to Supervisor Gundrum's point, we hope it goes swimmingly, but if things don't, if Eagles Entertainment drops the ball in any way, we have ways to get out of this agreement for breaches, for them not paying things they're supposed to pay, for example, for them not putting on shows as they promised, for them breaching curfew. So yes, it's a 10-year agreement in part because we're concerned about how long it's going to take to even get the agreement really off the ground under the current state of things. We want to make sure that, again, given the investment that his company is putting into the park, it's worth their while to make that investment. But also we built into this agreement, if there are problems, we'll get out of it.
Thank you. Supervisor Conrad, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Just representing the town of Polk, I do see this as an, exciting opportunity to optimize that land. It's actually an old friend of mine's grandparents' land. And I do have faith in the Washington County Sheriff's Department to handle things. But you speak of how much success. There is a concern of mine that is it going to be, maybe too much growth that would affect the quality of life of the town of Polk and why individuals live there. Hopefully it won't, that area immediately is mostly farmland. But yeah, there are some, more homes to the east. But just a concern about too much growth and losing our quality of life. And just hope that we respect that throughout this 10-year contract.
Yeah, I'm hoping this agreement actually augments and improves the quality of life. We've given, we're number one in the quality of life in the state of Wisconsin for county. And I'm hoping that this gives people another avenue and another entertainment option that actually increases our quality of life. So,
Yes. Yeah. More specifically with the quality of life is, like a bunch of hotels and other things coming right into that area. We live in that area for a reason, because it is rural, because there are farmlands and trees and green spaces. And to ensure that we're respectful of that throughout these years.
definitely. Thank you. Supervisor Bossert.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess I look at our role here as our county executive as described, where we're approving the concept, not the contract. We're not approving all the details of everything. And that's part of that divided government and having a county executive. We decide on the policy and then the executive branch executes that. And that's what our county executive and the executive branch is doing here. I think it's a good concept. I'd ask everybody to support it. I think it shows a lot of vision. If you look back 40 or 50 years ago, the city of Milwaukee had the same kind of vision with an area called Summerfest. And that's worked out overall very well for them. Not perfect, but very well. I think we need to have that same kind of vision. One thing that I want to touch on briefly, and I know it's a small concern in the big picture of things, but it's important for a lot of families here in Washington County, is how this changes the relationship with 4-H. And I'm not sure what you can share about that tonight.
Who wants to address that?
So the 4-H relationship has always been with AIS. It will continue to be with AIS. But what the new contract will do, historically, if you don't know how this works, the 4-H actually had to rent space from the Fair Park. So the county through 4-H was actually paying to rent space from Fair Park, about $40,000 a year roughly. The new contract with AIS would remove that expense. AIS would still have the responsibility of accommodating 4-H for their functions. And as most of you in this room know, most of those buildings are utilized by 4-H, some of them predominantly by 4-H. So all of that will still remain. The expense will go away. The county will no longer pay to use our own facilities.
And I want to thank you for making those arrangements. I know that's important for a lot of the 4-H families in our community. It always struck me as strange that 4-H, which essentially is a very heavily county-supported organization, had to pay rent to utilize a county facility. So I think this is a great and positive change. So I want to thank you for doing that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Chaudron.
If you could please explain to my plebeian understanding of the law. You said you're sticking a couple $100,000 into upgrading the facilities. Let's say they get into the middle of it, something happens, they go bankrupt. Do we have any lien protections against that? Because obviously people can lean them then, right? Whoever's doing the work.
My expectation is that any work that's going to be done out there has to be done in accordance with the public bidding rules. So we'll probably get performance bonds and so forth to cover anything. And over the course of my time, even as county attorney in the last few years, we actually have had one occasion to cash in a performance bond, and we did so. So any of those major improvements that are in that kind of dollar amount, we're going to make sure that we have those protections in place.
Perfect. Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment. We have a lot of questions because we've only known about this for 2 months. It's helpful knowing that you've been working on this for 8 months. So what you have that we haven't seen, I believe is very well thought out. Your answers to the questions have proven that to me. And so I think as a board, as individuals, I myself am very comfortable with what we're heading into here, knowing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. With regard to the comment or question about construction, it's important to note that once these structures are built, they're county property. They're not owned by anybody other than the county. I wouldn't normally have said that, but there have been points of debate about that over the 8 years that I've been here about who actually owns that property. So it's unequivocally clear, and it has been unequivocally clear with Eagles Entertainment as well, and now certainly with AIS, that those buildings and all the grounds are owned by Washington County, not by them. So, which is a big part of why with the resolution that's in front of you, it's making it damn clear. We own this thing, we're operating it, and you're managing it on our behalf. And we've tried to make that abundantly clear on both sides. So that I think that drills down to the answer that the attorney gave with regard to liens and things of that nature. It's not as simple as, yeah, go ahead, Eagles Entertainment, and build your bathrooms and concession stands. That all has to go through the county because it's county property and county buildings.
Supervisor Dice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to compliment the board. I think it's been an excellent discussion this evening, and I think the questions have been thought out and deserve to be asked. But the one thing that I know is that I'm not an attorney, and I don't think anyone on the board is an attorney. So when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of this contract, that's when I rely on the experts that we have. And I think our county attorney is an expert in this area. And he also brought in another expert in the entertainment field who's a lawyer. I don't think we can ask for anything more than that. I agree with Supervisor Bossert that we have a county exec. That's where we are right now. I think they've done an excellent job. This is a huge benefit for Washington County. And I think now is the time that we should approve this and move on with more business before the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would say in that regard as well, that when I made the decision to not just utilize Brad's services, he's certainly an outstanding county attorney and a phenomenal guitar player. So of course he can negotiate a contract like this. But I asked Brad to not just go out and get outside counsel, but go out and get outside counsel at an international level. Brad's eyes popped out of his head at the numbers that I was willing to spend to get it right. But I felt it very important and to have a letter from Mr. Strand that documented that not just us, Washington County saw it, but somebody who's in the industry, who knows how the mechanics of the industry work, and who is highly credible at the highest levels of that industry. And so It cost a little bit of money to do that, but I think it was money well invested, and I think it'll pay back in spades over the years to come. So I appreciate that comment, but really wanted to drive that point home.
Okay, Supervisor Kelly, you have the last word on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that was hopefully what I wanted to get to. Okay, so Ms. Dice did steal a little bit of my thunder. Thank you, Chris. For those of us who've been on the board a while, we all know some of the problems and challenges we faced at Fair Park. And for those of us that are new to the board, as to what we've been facing. So I think we're all pretty well versed in what we need to do. We had this very exciting opportunity practically fall out of the sky for us. We've got an excellent attorney who has gone through this contract to the best of his ability. If there are any challenges that we missed or whatever, I'm sure our very capable county executive, who we've counted on for many years for his sage advice, will get us through it. I think this is just a wonderful opportunity for our county, and we need to rely on the people that we pay to do the work we need done and move ahead with this and do it in a united way where our citizens will all benefit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Sure
Mr.
don't get the
Chairman.
last word.
No, I just wanted to make sure for the record that I said this because I don't think I touched on it, but Brad mentioned that the acts, the entertainment for the county fair would still happen, that Eagles Entertainment would be the promoter, but it's important to note publicly, because this was important to AIS, that AIS will run the county fair in its entirety, including the entertainment. They will work with Eagles Entertainment as the promoter, but it will be owned and operated, the fair itself, by AIS. So it's an important differentiator. There was a lot of debate around that issue. So I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware that when it comes to that specific event, it's AIS specific, for better and worse. So that's their responsibility. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on this electronically. Motion passes 22-4. Next meeting date, Wednesday, May 12th, 6:00 PM. Thank you for everybody. We adjourn. Thank you.